my single biggest bet of the offseason was under 12.5. I just thought that number was ridiculous.
That number is high.
13-4 is, I mean, because you can have a legitimately great season at 12-5, but you won't hit the over. So I took that number like right after the Super Bowl, because I just, and I had, with no knowledge of the tumult that was coming, it just seemed ridiculously high to me.
Is that what it still is right now?
It's 11.5 now.
Okay.
Which is still, I mean,
I would still
5 is
I would
legit.
still take the under.
Yeah, it just, and then be happy if they go over, because your team won 12 games. But from a financial standpoint, that was just too much. A couple of my others, that was really the only team prop I had. The other kind of big ones were, I took Debo. I took him over the receiving yards of 100. His 800 receiving yards I thought was low. I think he's going to have a really good season.
So if Debo plays 16 games, he only's got to average 50 yards receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So that sounds very doable. So I'm with you on the over. I'm trying to think if I guess the reason for the low number is just for the mere factor of injury. Like they're just betting that he's going to miss 4 games or something like that, right?
Yep, it has to be. I took the only other one I was toying with, the Kittle receiving touchdowns, but I didn't end up taking that one. It's 5.5. I was on the lower. I was thinking he's not going to get that many, but he is just so, he is so touchdown dependent as a fantasy player. Like 2 years ago, he had 10 of them, which was, he ended up being like a top 3 tight end with 60 receptions, but he had 10 touchdowns. So I don't know if 5.5. I didn't love that, but I didn't end up betting it. The only other one I took CMC rushing touchdowns higher than 10.5. I like that number. Those are my 3 props. What do you think about that one? Rushing touchdowns.
Woo, that's a good one. And especially just on the, pun intended, heels of the Achilles heel injury.
That's so bad.
That's that is a tough one, because we have watched him now for a few years and he's been great. I think the rep a little bit was he's injury prone, and we've just seen him play all the time. So if we go by that, if we go by the fact that he's going to play 15, 16 games, 10.5 should be money, because he just finds the end zone. He just has a nose for the end zone.
And
but
you figure, my thought was, and you can probably pencil in at least 1, 2, or 3 touchdown game.
Yes.
Which, gets you there.
That's also why I think I would have Kittle at over, because Kittle's going to have a game. He'll go 3 or 4 games without a touchdown, and then Brock's going to find him 2 or 3 times in one game, because that's just how streaky Kittle can be sometimes. I'm with you. I understand. So just to go back to some of the other, I understand the Debo number. I think that Debo number is smart. We're banking on the idea that Debo is going to have a ball out season, because it just seems that way. So I'm going over. Kittle, I'm going over on the receiving touchdowns for Kittle too. The CMC one has me on pause because of injury, but I still think, let's say you get 13 or 14 games out of CMC. Let's give him 3 games off. He's probably still getting really close to that number just off of 13 games.
He could easily do a touchdown a game. And then when you factor in one or two multiple touchdown games. I'm a believer in this offense. I'm a believer in Brock. I'm, the only question is the offensive line. And, everybody, I didn't see any of it. I didn't go to training camp. Everybody seems to believe in Pooney. I'm still not sure if that's how you pronounce his name. I've never heard anybody else say it. I've only read it, so I don't know. I'll see on the game tomorrow. I guess that shows you how much I watched preseason.
Yeah,
I don't. But if he's as good as advertised, obviously the Banks injury is kind of, you're it's just a finger, but your hands are kind of important as an offensive lineman. So yeah, I think we're gonna go as they go. If we can get a solid season out of those guys, I'm sure we're gonna have another season of George playing, auxiliary right tackle over there helping McKivitz. It was funny to watch during the Ravens game to hear Ravens fans online complaining about all the blocking that Mark Andrews was having to do. I was like, yeah, you welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Because when your offensive line is struggling, that's like the first move is just to put your tight end out there to help. So I imagine we'll see a lot of that with Kittle this year over there with McKivitz. So yeah, it's gonna be, if we can get it blocked, I have full faith and confidence in Kyle and Brock running the offense. If we can just keep that dude upright and not, I just don't want Brock taking a whole bunch of hits because this whole thing falls apart if he's hurt. It's just, I don't think we can make it to New Orleans with any of those other guys.
I just looked up some of Brock's historical numbers from a rushing touchdown perspective. His best season for rushing touchdowns was 2019 with Carolina. 16 games, 15 rushing touchdowns. He was a fantasy beast that year. So when he came to the Niners, he was six rushing touchdowns in 10 games in 2022. And then last year, 14 rushing touchdowns in 16 games. So yeah, I can sort of see why that number is as low as it is, or at least as we think it's as low as it is. Any running back who scores 10 to 11 touchdowns is having a banner year. So I get it. And I guess if I had to bet it, I would probably either stay away or bet the under. But if you are of the idea that he is going to play 15 games, then he's going to go, more than likely going to go over that number. So it's really what you think as far as his health is concerned. But so I'll give you my official bets. If I was doing it now, that I am not. I would be under 11.5 wins. I think Shelvin also said he's at 11, so he would be under. I would have Debo over 800. I would have Kittle over 5.5, and I would have CMC under 10.5.
And I lied. I have one more. I think Brock goes way over 3,900 passing yards. I think that number is stupid low.
I think I would go over that as well. And I wonder how much of that number was based on Ayuk possibly not being on the team.
Yeah. That might have a lot to do with it. But yeah, that number, I can't see him being under 4,000 yards if he's injuries aside, which is always the caveat. I think he blows past 3,900 yards passing.
He had 4,280 last year, and he sat out one game. So
yeah, I could say so. Maybe that number, and that was on Underdog where I got that number. So maybe that was, and again, that was prior to, BA signing, and maybe they're factoring the number was factoring in. Maybe it wasn't looking good there for a while. But yeah, I thought that was stealing.
I would actually go over. I would actually be more confident on the Brock 3,900 passing yards, probably over all of them except Debo. For some reason, I just think Debo's going to have a giant year this year.
I do too.
But hey, we're also homers, so that influences our decisions. But